For over 2,000 years, hosts of conquerors have laid waste to the land of promise. The stones, the trees, and the valleys and streams have sat vacant, waiting patiently for the day when the words of the prophet would be fulfilled. Ezekiel's vision of the valley of the dry bones is a familiar one. God shows Ezekiel a valley full of very dry bones, and God asks Ezekiel the question, "Son of man, can these bones live?" Even now this question rings true, even now when God has clearly brought his people back into the land of Israel. He has covered these dry bones with flesh and sinews and breathed life into them. Among the rolling hills of Samaria, a small community of Jewish families have taken the mandate to revive Jewish presence in a region which served as a backdrop to some of the Bible's most important stories. The town of ITAMAR, named after the biblical priest, the son of Aaron, lies just south of the ancient city of Shechem and Elam Moreh, where Avram entered the land, and a promise was made that Avram's descendants would be as numerous as the stars. Established in 1984, the modern town of ITAMAR consists of over 100 families that have made the move with their children into the midst of their biblical heritage with the dream to revive the land through farming and innovation in a region surrounded by Arab villages. Could this modern town of ITAMAR be part of the fulfillment of Ezekiel's prophecy? Rabbi Moshe Goldsmith and his wife Leah were among the first founding families of the town of ITAMAR. They believed in an idealistic movement to re-establish Jewish communities in the biblical heartland.
I think it was our inner spark, the inner voice we heard of our forefathers calling us back to the land. That was really putting it simply. I originally came from Brooklyn. I was born in Flatbush in New York. I went to Jewish school, Orthodox family. My parents always stressed Aliyah, coming to the land, making Aliyah to move to Israel, and I took their word seriously. It happened. Right after I graduated college, my wife and I started to move to Israel. We said we're going to do something idealistic. We're going to look for a new community just starting out.
We moved here in 1986 after making Aliyah in 1985. There was nothing here but a row of prefab houses and no really running water or electricity. And we've seen it grow against the odds.
This is the central Bible belt of the land of Israel. When Abraham comes to the land of Israel, the first place that he chooses, well, he's told by God to go to the land. God says to Abraham, "Go to the land I will show you." He doesn't even tell him where to go. But Abraham comes here first. He comes to the land of Shechem, the holy city of the blessing and the curse, the city of Joseph. This whole area is surrounded by, we call them the gem of the hills, the beautiful gems of the hill.
All the biblical stories happened here. And why did we pick Itamar? Well, maybe Itamar picked us. Maybe God chose us to be his servant in this place. But I love all of Israel, but whenever I come back to Itamar, if I'm traveling out, I always say there's no place like home because I feel the most at home here.
Up in the hills, beyond the security and infrastructure of the community below, can be found small farms and houses sprinkled across the landscape. These courageous families see the hilltops as the biblical frontier waiting to be settled. One of these families was Baruch and Batya Erdstein, who with their young children settled on the hilltops almost 20 years ago.
When we came to this hilltop, it was completely barren. It was just rocks and thorns. Bad location if you want to start a coffee house art studio. And yet we've seen just incredible blessings. Very successful, great interest in places that we never would have imagined. And we see this as the prophecies being fulfilled in our own lives. When I came to the land of Israel at the age of 22, I didn't know the alphabet. And now my 6 children, their mother tongue is the Holy Tongue in Hebrew. The land is responding. We planted about 300 trees, most of them fruit trees. And the terrain is changing. We feel the ecosystem is changing right around our house. We feel, there are more birds, there's more wildlife, the winds aren't as harsh, there's more moisture in the air. We see the land coming back alive.
ITAMAR has also been an ecological incubator for innovation, from producing 80% of Israel's organic eggs to growing world-renowned tulips for the international market. Tomer and Meital Panini have been living and working the hilltops above ITAMAR in the hopes of reviving the ancient soil and sharing the fruit of the land with the world.
חקלאי חייב להיות בתמימות, באמונה, זה לא בטיפשות, זה לא רחפנות. זה לחיות בתודעה של אמונה, שמה שאני עושה פה הוא חשוב, הוא טוב, הוא קשור לעם ישראל. אחרי זה פה זה הבית ספר, פה הם לומדים, אתה צריך לקחת אותם, ללמד אותם למצוא את האוכל. ולאט לאט הם לומדים ואז הם כבר יודעים לבד, ברגע שהם למדו לבד הם עוברים לכיתה א'. פה זה גן, ופה זה הכיתה א', אחרי זה הייסקול, זה בית ספר תיכון. טוב, אנחנו גרנו, אני ואשתי, גרנו בגולן. מאוד רצינו להיות חקלאים בגולן, להיות קשורים לאדמה, לארץ. הכל תפוס בגולן, כאילו, או זה שייך לצבא, או שייך לחקלאים, או לבקר, מגדלי בקר. הבנו שהקדוש ברוך הוא דוחף אותנו איפה שצריך. עכשיו יש לנו כוח, בואו תהיו חלוצים לפני העם במקום שצריך. כאילו אנחנו מאמינים שאנחנו עושים מעשים, שמירה בלילה, יציאה למרעה, שתילת קרמים, הכנת יין, כל הפעילות שאנחנו עושים פה בארץ ישראל, פעולות שיביאו את החיבור של הלב של עם ישראל. אנחנו הידיים, אנחנו סוג של הידיים של עם ישראל כרגע. בחווה יש לנו עדר כבשים, קרוב ל-400 ראש כבשים בשר, שמסתובבים על כל השטח פה מסביב, 7 שעות ביום, עם רועה. יש פה 40 דונם כרם יין, יש פה יקב מצליח, ברוך השם, זוכה פרסים בינלאומיים בארץ ובתחרויות בינלאומיות ובתחרויות בתוך הארץ. יש פה אוכמניות ויש פרחים נקראים אדמוניות שהם לשיווק בארץ ובעולם, לבורסה בהולנד, לארצות הברית. השפע והברכה של ארץ ישראל מגיעה לכל העולם. הבחינה המחודשת שאחרי 2000 שנה, שעם ישראל צריך לחדש את הקשר בין הארץ לבין העם. כשעם ישראל מגיע לארץ, דבר ראשון, הוא עובר את הירדן, עושה מעמד בגלגל, וכולם רצים לעשות מעמד חידוש הקשר בין עם ישראל, התורה והארץ בהר עיבל והר גריזים, שזה פה. זאת אומרת, זה המקום, האזור הזה, זה המקום שמסמל את החידוש הקשר בין הארץ לבין עם ישראל ולבין התורה.
Being surrounded on all sides by Palestinian villages comes at a price. In the last 30 years, there have been dozens of terror attacks in ITAMAR, from suicide bombings to shootings and stabbings, the more recent of which saw the slaying of the Fazal family in cold blood.
Every person who gave their life for ITAMAR is mentioned here. And every name on the list was someone that I was in touch with or knew very well. Most of them I knew very, very well. Some of them were my students, some of them were my neighbor. Here, Gilad Stiglitz, this boy was killed right over here, right outside the door. The terrorists came and entered the high school and opened fire, and he started over here in this area, and he shot Gilad, who was mortally wounded and died. Shortly after, I was there just to find him laying on the street. Terrible tragedy. Gilad Zal, my neighbor, He was killed on the road, ambushed by terrorists. He was the head of security. Mayor Shlomo was killed right outside Itamar, coming back from Elon Moreh. Yosef Yaakov Twitel, he was the head of the response team. He was killed in the Shabo massacre. I mean, this is just in the Fogel family. Unfortunately, there are people that aren't mentioned here on the list. Others that were murdered since the Fogels. The Henkin family that were ambushed right outside. The husband and wife were murdered. But of course, we go on. These people, while we're here in their merit, we live on in the land, and we don't forget them. When we came here, we found our home, and we knew this is where we belong. On the other hand, we know that good things in this world don't come easy. I guess the hardest years of our lives were the years that we had to face these terrible tragedies. And the question is, how do we go on? How do we go on from that? Throughout the history of the people of Israel, we've always been through very difficult challenges, and we weren't going to allow these terrorists to accomplish their goals, which are to scare and chase those who come to settle, to live in the divine homeland, to chase them away from their home.
ובאמת היה הרבה יותר קל אם הייתי במקום אחר, פחות שמירות בלילה, פחות כל ההתעסקויות, כל הקפיצה, כל השריפות שהערבים עכשיו מנסים, הם לא מצליחים להתמודד איתנו, אז הם מתחילים לשרוף ולברוח את השטחים שלנו. לא יודע להגיד לך מה שווה לא שווה, אני יודע להגיד כמה שווה יהודי שנרצח, כמה שווה, לא יודע, לא מתעסק בזה. אני מתעסק בנסות כמה שיותר להמשיך ולבנות את הדברים קדימה. אני אשאיר לקדוש ברוך הוא את החשבונות של כמה שווה.
The people that go out there self-sacrificing their lives to go out into that dangerous zone, and not to mention the infrastructure that they need and the needs that they have, that they're putting their lives on the line, not for themselves, but for Israel.
We want to live life to its fullest. The Jewish people we value life. And because of that, we want to use it for everything that it's worth. We don't want to dumb it down. We don't want to compromise not just our quality of life, but in our beliefs.
Although we had to contend with other issues on the enemies from without that were attacking us with Molotov cocktails and roadside shootings and roadblocks and all that kind of thing in the Intifada, it still did not take away from the feeling of being in the most peaceful place in the world. And that's the feeling to this very day. That hasn't changed.
Some have found opportunity despite the waves of terror that was beginning to cripple the small town. Shira Ben Pinchas manages Clicker, a shared workspace hub in the heart of Itamar that helps encourage and train members of the community to engage in the startup nation.
המקום הזה מיועד לאנשים שהם עצמאים ובעלי עסקים שבאים לעבוד במרחב המשותף. בעצם זה מקום שיש בו מטבחון אחד, שירותים אחד, חדר ישיבות אחד, מרפסת אחת. כל אחד יש לו את העמדה שלו, הוא יושב פה והוא בעצם עושה את כל העיסוקים של העסק שלו, וככה הוא עושה שיווק ופייסבוק ואינסטגרם והנהלת חשבונות, כל מה שצריך. כל בשביל שהעסק יתרומם ואנשים ירוויחו יותר טוב. הגענו לגור באיתמר. איתמר הייתה אז אחרי גל טרור. היה פה חצי מהבתים היו ריקים. באנו, אמרו לנו, איזה בית אתם רוצים? את זה, כל הבתים ריקים. באנו כדי להיות קרובים לישיבה, היה ברור לנו שאנחנו נהיה פה שנה, שנתיים ונמשיך הלאה. פתאום לאט לאט אתה מתחבר למקום, מתחבר לאנשים, אתה מבין את המשמעות של לגור במקום שעם ישראל צריך אותך. התחלנו בהתחלה, אמרנו, אוקיי, בוא נתנדב קצת. אז אנחנו יושבים עכשיו במתחם שקוראים לו קליק השומרון. פה זה מקום של ביזנס, כאילו אנשים פה בעלי עסקים, זה המרחב הזה הוא של בעלי עסקים. שאנחנו רוצים, בלי להתבלבל, שהם יגדלו, יצמחו ברמה העסקית, ירוויחו יותר טוב, יהיו משפחות יותר יציבות כלכלית, שזה גם באדוות ישפיע על כל האזור.
As the sun rises on a new day, life continues. Children go to school, worshippers go to synagogue, people go to work, and the dream of a peaceful future remains. In Itamar, The vision of Ezekiel is submerged in the stories of real people who live real lives, living out a dream, living out prophecy. Sometimes we have to step back and observe the fruit and watch the transformation happen before our eyes to really understand the words of the prophet.
Ezekiel the prophet talks about a very, very clear description of the bones. Will these bones live again? I mean, the first thing that comes to mind, of course, is the Holocaust. When I think about Leah, my wife, her father as being a survivor, her mother, both her parents, Holocaust survivors. Today we've come to life to see our children serving in the Israeli army and our grandchildren living here and flourishing in the land. I think that's a very strong proof to every word of our prophets are coming true.
The revival of the dead, so to speak, you know, that is our lives. My personal life and very much what we see happening in our nation, even though it's hidden.
אני חושבת שזה התגשמות ברורה של חזון העצמות היבשות, שגם ההתיישבות וגם האידיאלים וגם האנשים לובשים עור וגידים, כאילו מתמלאים.
תחייה זה שלב ראשון. שלב הבא, מה התפקיד שלך? למה קמת לתחייה? למה חיכית 2000 שנה? מה היית צריך לברר? ומה התפקיד שלך עכשיו בעולם? וככה זה מה שאני מסתכל. אני חושב שלא רק קמתי מתחייה ואני כבר לא גופה, אלא אני עכשיו צריך לחיות. ואיך חיים? חיים באמונה.
When the swamps were drained and little settlements set up in Petach Tikva, in Yesod Amala, in Metula, Haifa, all these places, and then more people were collected from more countries that say from the north, from the south, from the east, from the west, all the bones will come together in one place. And the hills of Samaria and Judea are not obvious in their identity yet. But as the bones of Ezekiel come to life and a spirit is breathed into those bones, the true identity of the land of God will be known to all.
So now the sun is setting on ITAMAR, and we have spent these days here meeting the people, hearing their stories, and getting a taste of what this place is and what it stands for. And so I leave you with the question, is this place truly a fulfillment of Ezekiel's vision? Has it happened already? Is it still happening? Or is it still to happen? This is Ruth saying good evening from ITAMAR.